Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and we broadcast more or less on Mondays and Fridays, sometimes less on Fridays if there's a show that I have to see. But again, we broadcast to three different live stream sites on the internet. One of them is the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, which we created right around the time that the pandemic started in April of 2020. And again, those of you who know it are probably already members, but you can petition for membership. It's not very difficult. We just like to know that you're connected in some way to the New Orleans theater community, and you can become a member. And even if not, you can probably become a member as long as we know that you're not somebody who's entering for ulterior motives as far as that goes, or a bot or something like that. Also, we broadcast to the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, which of course is the social media Facebook page that we use to promote articles when we publish them on theatercriticism.com, a site that I created for theater critics across the country, and also on my own YouTube channel that we have. So that's pretty much the best place to go if you're not a member of Facebook or you don't want to be associated with Facebook in any way. Just go to YouTube and you can see all of these. They're archived and all available to you at no charge. We also remind everybody that if you want to join the conversation tonight, add a comment or perhaps ask a question, go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and post the fact that you're allowing StreamYard as a third party to utilize Facebook. And then that way your information, your name will be broadcast into the chat. We'll be able to see who it is that we're dealing with. Tonight we have a really interesting actor and performer. And I should say that I was very fortunate back in May to see Hannah Pepper perform. Hannah's a film and a theater actor. She has, as she says in her bio, work that traverses a wide range of human experience. Some of you may have seen her when she did a solo performance in something called the Yiddishe Vayb. And again, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit because it's coming back. But she also was recently in a film, Mabel My Beauty, which was cited at the Sundance Film Festival. We'll talk a little bit about that. And again, a couple of other New Orleans connections that she has. So let's just sort of get to the matter at hand. Hannah Pepper, welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. Want to thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, again, I saw the Yiddishe Vayb in City Park, and I hope I pronounce it right. Is that correct? Vayb, V-A-Y-B. How do you pronounce it?
I say vibe, but
maybe
it
vibe
could be
would be
vape.
better.
Honestly,
you know what? Vibe is probably the preferred way. I never can pronounce Yiddish right because
but
Yiddish,
I think there's a lot of pronunciations of Yiddish out there.
It's like they have people who pronounce it to get really like fussied up, as it were. They called I'm verputzt, and
Right.
other people say verpitzt, and the
Right.
pronunciation depends on whether or not you're Galiciana or not, etc.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
So I know a little bit about that, and I don't want to go into it and bore people to tears about what are they talking about Galicia and all that other stuff. But again, Hannah, welcome to the show. I have to ask, in terms of your experience, are you originally from New Orleans?
I'm not. I'm actually originally, well, I grew up mostly in Massachusetts, and I'm here right now actually visiting my parents. I fly back to New Orleans tomorrow. I've been living in New Orleans for about 13 years.
So, what was the connection? What brought you to the jewel of the South, as it were?
Absolutely. Actually, when I first moved to New Orleans, I was started working with Mondo Bizarro, which is a very wonderful ensemble theater company that has a long history in New Orleans. So I was really lucky. I worked with them for about 10 years. And
now that's Nick. Is that Nick Sly, right?
Nick Sly, Joanna Russo, Bruce France, and Dan Prixarnicle at the moment.
Yeah, we had Nick on not too long ago. I don't know if you caught the show, but
talking about, well, he has a lot of stuff going on now. He could have been talking about Invisible Rivers or Ezel, or they're doing Co-and-Tell show.
It was the one about the I'm trying to remember the exact thing, but it was originally from Kentucky, I believe. And
Ezel, Ballad of a Land Man.
That was the name when you said You said the one name, but you didn't say the
Ezel,
Ballad of the
Ezel.
Landman. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ballad of the
yeah.
Landman. So as I explained to you, I usually ask people to bring a little drink in so we can talk a little bit first as to what we're having. And because we ran late tonight, I made something that's unusual. I want you to look real close. Can you see what's in there?
2 ice cubes.
Actually, they're not ice cubes. They
They're,
are stainless steel, frozen stainless steel cubes that are used
wow,
so in other words, what they do is they chill the drink, but because they don't melt, you get the scotch or whatever you have tonight. I went
very
old
nice.
school and I'm having Chivas. So sorry about that. I didn't have time to prepare a drink,
It's
but again,
excellent,
so
excellent.
so
No,
the yeah.
the cubes take it to a next level. I am
So
having, ginger ale with bitters.
very nice.
Mhm,
I love ginger ale. You know, back in the old days when I was not drinking alcohol as a youngster, that was my
mhm.
favorite drink, and I used to always love Canada Dry. I don't know, do you like Schweppes or Canada Dry? Do you have a preference?
I'm not a huge I don't drink it enough to have a preference, but I believe that I am drinking Canada Dry, and it's
Mhm.
very nice.
Yes. I used to think they called it the champagne of, which is kind of a ridiculous thing, the champagne of ginger ales,
I
but,
think so.
what yeah, I mean, what the heck. So, anyway, Hannah, so you're coming on tonight to talk about, the Yiddishe vibe. I'm gonna call it that so that
We
we
can
get
d
it right.
For tonight, we can.
And tell me your history with this particular piece. How did this come about?
Absolutely. So this is a piece that my collaborator, who wanted to be here tonight and couldn't be, Rachel Lee, she and I started working on this piece a, a little less than a year ago. So late December 2020, early January 2021. And we really wanted to do a show. And at that point, the COVID restrictions were higher than they are now. And so we thought, well, it would be easiest to do a show with one performer and one musician, and she'll be the director. And I said, well, can you look for some? She works at NOLA. So I said, can you think of some scripts that would be good for me? And she said, I really want to see you do some Jewish folk tales. So she went into the library at NOLA, and was looking and saw the Isaac Bashevis Singer collections of the Chelm Tales. And then next to it, she saw that there was the Bertolt Brecht collection, which is I should remember, but it's the play that he wrote about. It's a series of vignettes right before, sort of on the verge of fascism. I can look it up when we have a moment, but the
Yeah.
particular play from the particular vignette that she chose is called The Jewish Wife.
Mhm.
And it's a short play, so she sort of started experimenting with splicing the monologues for the Jewish wife in with the folk tales from Chelm, and we ended up using some from the Isaac Bashevis Singer book and some from another collection by a woman named Blanche L. Serwer Bernstein. And then we just kept working with them and kept playing them, and sort of found the story that existed between them, which is sort of this where the title of the piece comes as well, as Yiddishe Vayb is, or the Yiddishe Vayb, we're still figuring out, is the Jewish wife in
The
Yiddish.
Jewish wife. And again, this was put on, and I'm going to put a picture of the overlay that we have here. This is put on at City Park, and it was I guess that would be a nice. Is that a live oak tree? I can't remember if it was
I
or
would
what.
say yes. I would say
Yeah.
yes, that's a live oak
And
tree.
so in any event, that was the main piece behind you. You had one musician, and again, you mentioned, but you also performed, did you not?
Yes, I do play a bit of violin in the play. Mhm.
Right. But the other musician,
Byron Asher, really amazing multi-instrumentalist. He has a lot of work of his own. Definitely check him out. He's B.O. Asher on Instagram, and he has a really amazing piece called Scraunch Music that he's been touring with. But he's wonderful, and we sort of just told him, so in some of these pieces we're going for more of like a klezmer vibe, and sometimes we want it more rolled back, and sort of helping to transition, but because there is a bit of moving back and forth in time. And so he really helps to do some of that moving back and forth in time.
and I remember you were doing the older. person, the Yiddish, the Jewish wife, if you will, the Jewish wife. But you also had telephone. You were getting calls about what was going on during. Essentially, it's sort of a Holocaust background,
Yeah.
right?
Right. So the Jewish wife, in the original Brecht tells the story of this woman who is Jewish living in Berlin, probably early to mid 1930s, who's married to a non-Jew, and as the situation intensifies under Nazi Germany, she needs to make the decision to leave, and sort of it shows her making the different phone calls to her friends, to her, sort of like to tie up the loose ends before she goes, and ultimately sort of figure out what is going to be the fate of her relationship in this
Hmm.
situation.
And again, you did this back in May during times when COVID was still pretty, as you mentioned, still pretty rampant. It was before the Delta variant. Had the Delta
Right.
variant happened at the time, you might not have been able to put it on because restrictions went back to less than so many people in restaurants and things of that sort, and had to have the mask back on, etc. So
Right. Yeah. So we actually, the first time when we first did it, excuse me, we were this is the ginger ale. We were wanted to do it first outdoors for live audiences last January, but that was like when the second COVID surge
yeah.
happened. And so like 3 days before we were going to do it, they put stricter restrictions on. So we're like, well, we can't do it. So we just had like our families come to watch it, and we filmed it. And so an earlier version, which we're not really sharing anymore because it's gotten better, and we want to share what's current. So an earlier version we shared online because we still, when that was all we could do. And then we did it again in May because we wanted to have bigger audiences. And Delta sort of caught up with us more over the summer because we were supposed to perform at the Cleveland Fringe Festival, which ended up getting canceled. All the live performances were canceled because of Delta, basically. But we really wanted to do it, regardless of all that. We really wanted to do it for Hanukkah because there's a little bit in some of the Chalm tales, which for folks aren't familiar, they're sort of very fun, traditional Ashkenazi Jewish folk tales about a city of sort of emblematic city of fools and the shenanigans that they get into, sort of trying to just make their lives better or make their lives more difficult by, trying to keep track of their identities by wearing certain clothing or, just shenanigans. And so one of the stories takes place at Hanukkah. So we were like, that would be really fun, sort of family friendly show to do, during Hanukkah, which it kind of snuck up on us because Hanukkah is really early this year.
Yeah, yeah. First night was last night.
Yeah. Happy
And I will
Hanukkah.
admit that I should have lit my candles already, but I'm waiting because of the show. I'm waiting to do it till after the show tonight.
Nice.
So the
Nice.
rabbis, don't let them know. We
Your secret is safe with me.
So again, we ask if anybody has any questions or any comments about the Yiddishe Vayb vibe. Make sure I say it both ways. StreamYard.com/Facebook, and allows you to leave a comment if you have anything to say to Hannah or to me about what's going on. And again, you didn't present it, if I recall. It was sort of a short run, wasn't it? Was it over 2 weekends or just?
They've all been tiny runs. This one is also
Yeah.
only going to be 2 performances, and the other one was supposed to be 3 days, but then there was a big storm one of the days. So it's
Yeah.
the challenges of outdoor theater.
Well, when it comes to doing something like that, obviously, the more you do it, the more you become imbued with the character, and I would say you get to perform it almost by rote. So when you do a character like that, and then you drop it for 3 or 4, or in this case, May of 2021, you dropped it for longer than 6 months, practically, or approximately 6 months. How do you go about reassuming the character, the persona that you're putting on in the production?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then thanks to my mom, she texted me. It's Fear and Loathing. Sorry, not Fear and Loathing. Fear and Misery in the Third Reich. That's the longer Brecht piece that it came from. Fear and Misery in the
Gotcha.
Third Reich. Yeah, it's It's exciting and scary, I think, to get back into a character or multiple characters in this situation for the piece. And I try to do a decent job after a run of like making some notes, jotting down things to remember. And then I guess coming back to it is also an opportunity to lose some of the stuff that maybe wasn't as helpful, or to find 6 months is definitely enough distance to come back and find little gems or little hidden parts of the character that I hadn't found before. And since we know the structure, we're not changing the structure. We really know the words. We're not really changing the words. There's just sort of, there's always more to discover in a character. So I feel like it feels very rewarding to come back and be like, oh, okay, this character is becoming, there's more that I'm finding that can lead into this character being who they are, as opposed to just the beginnings of someone.
Now, you mentioned Rachel's the director, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Lee. Now, my question.
Yeah, and she also adapted the works.
Now, did she come up with the idea that she said, I want you to not only play, but I want you to literally play, music instrument? Was that something in your wheelhouse already?
Yeah. So I do play the violin, and because I'm principally focusing on, making those weird violin faces. Because I'm principally focused on acting, I don't play in any sort of outfit at the moment. I do try to incorporate violin playing into the theater pieces. So I don't remember how we sort of came up. Rachel might remember the idea of how we came up with having the fiddle in there, but we did want to sort of have the opening be inviting people in and sort of having it more of a jovial atmosphere that wasn't, especially since it's outdoors, we don't have any sort of proscenium to work with. We don't have a curtain to work with. So what is the experience that people are walking into? And so that's the conceit, in a sense, that we developed, is the storyteller, who is, later, chronologically a little later down the road, the same character who at one point was packing up to leave Germany. At this point, she's, in exile in a sense, and looking for a way to tell her story. And so beginning with this welcoming music and hosting people and hoping to bring people in to this experience.
Well, two of the most prominent instruments in klezmer music are the clarinet and the violin. So that makes sense that you'd have those two there.
Yeah.
Did you listen to a lot of klezmer music going into this as well, to try to get you prepared for a feel for the music?
A bit of klezmer for sure, and sort of just Yiddish music of that time and what Byron was working with. I also listened to a fair amount of sort of secular German music of the time, to know what this woman would have been listening to, as someone who was more part of her story. She's more a part of secular German society than necessarily having a strong connection to more of Jewish cultural traditions. So the songs that she plays at the beginning, which is Ich bin the fesche Lola and the Tiger Rag, would have been sort of just songs that any old German, or really anyone, sort of popular music of the time. And then the last song, Bei mir bist du schön, is of course a Yiddish song, but it was a Yiddish song that had sort of crossed over to becoming more of a generic pop song at the time and beyond. So we sort of, part of the story too is about her sort of figuring out what she wants her relationship with her sort of Ashkenazi Jewish cultural roots to be throughout the piece. And in the beginning, it's a little bit more hidden, which is also why Byron, his music becomes more what would sort of sound more recognizable as klezmer as the show goes on than it is in the beginning.
Well, of course, I still would be corrected, but I believe that Bei mir bist du schön is still the only Yiddish song that ever hit the top your parade or top of the charts as far as it goes.
Yeah, you wouldn't be corrected by me because I don't know, but that sounds right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't think
I don't know another one.
No, and again, a big hit for the Andrews sisters.
Yeah.
One of their early hits, and established them as artists later on. And it's funny because they played a lot at the World War II Museum and some of the Victory Bells shows, et cetera,
Oh,
too.
that's very interesting. I didn't. Yeah, I've actually
Yeah.
never been to the World.
So again, it is very identifiable, but the klezmer music has come into its own. It's very interesting to me. I don't know. We always it was a tradition around Thanksgiving for a lot of people. They play Alice's Restaurant because it takes place. If you remember, it's an 18-minute long piece by Arlo Guthrie, and it takes place over a Thanksgiving meal, etc. When they start up and they're having the meal, and he tells the story about him going down to the recruiting station, etc., and what happens to the tail. Very interesting story. And the reason I bring that up was Arlo Guthrie's mother-in-law was Jewish.
Yeah, and she was like a very famous Yiddish poet.
Yes.
I mean, famous among Yiddishists.
Right. And wrote klezmer music. Arlo Guthrie actually composed music for her.
Yeah.
Based on her lyrics. So it's just a connection that you would have never believed. Because
yeah, she was a very brilliant artist in her own right. But yes,
Yeah.
it's definitely less well known than Arlo Guthrie.
People were going, where is he going with this Arlo Guthrie thing? See, we did tie it together though. Again, I want to thank everybody who's with us tonight. Our guest, as I mentioned earlier, is Hannah Pepper, and Hannah is the star of the Yiddishe Vayb, the Yiddish wife, the Jewish wife, if you would. And she's going to be again. Before we go any further, let's say when the play dates are, because we haven't mentioned that yet. But you said it's going to be 2 shows this week only,
it's
right?
Saturday and Sunday at 3:30 p.m. And the link to go to get all the information about location, all of our COVID sort of safety precautions, and of course to reserve your ticket is, excuse me, do you want me to put it in the chat?
You just tell it to me.
It's bit.ly /D lowercase I, because with the bit.ly it does matter with the
right,
and then capital Y.
Yeah.
And then IDDISHE. So just bit.ly /Yiddishe.
Let's see if we did it right, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That is it.
So again, those of you who are interested in getting tickets, this is where you go. And again, I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you out there as well. We've got a couple of comments. Let's see what we got so far. First off, somebody said they saw it. It's wonderful.
Oh,
hey, unsolicited here. Now, again, if you don't want to be known as a Facebook user and we want to know who you are, what do you have to do is, as I said, go to that StreamYard.com/Facebook, give yourself permission to allow Facebook to put your name up, and they will do that. And here's another one we have here. I saw our show, and it is wonderful. So both of them, I don't know if it's the same person or not, but the second time, if it was, they put clapping hands. And
they put a heart. So
yeah,
we got an upgrade.
So,
thank you both very much.
Yeah, or one of you, whoever it may be.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
So we're not
wishful
sure
thinking over here.
Yeah, we're not sure. But again, you can do that. Like I said, I like to do this as I see the comments come in. We'll do that. We'll put that in the chat, and we'll hopefully have some people add to it. So if you have any questions about anything to do with this production, again, I'm fascinated again to know about the process in doing this, and did you actually read the stories, or did Rachel read them? I mean, was this how was this collaboration done?
In terms of the stories?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we both had those stories in growing up. The book with the Isaac Bashevis Singer book with it's like Zlata the Goat and other stories. I think I definitely had it growing up. I think Rachel did. And so we had those. They were way further back. The Helm stories were way further back in the recesses of my memory than they were in Rachel's. But we both looked at them, and actually the first 3 that when Rachel first presented it, So it's 4 stories altogether. There's a very short one at the beginning. I don't know if you remember, about the moon and the sun. And then there's the snow story, the red ribbon story, and the first Shlemiel. And when Rachel first presented it to me, it was the stories as they are in the Isaac Bashevis Singer book, which has one of the stories is a story called The Mixed Up Feet, which is a long, sort of, again, ridiculous, foolish story about a prolonged courtship, which we thought was good, but maybe less sort of along the lines of what we were wanting to talk about. And I had another book that I actually long-term borrowed from my father, which is called In the Traditions of Moses and Muhammad, which actually sort of looks at comparing and sharing folklore between across Jewish and Muslim stories. And they have the woman Blanche L. Serwer Bernstein collected in her own some different Helm stories. And so we were sort of looking at those, and they had some of them we liked better. So I brought those in and we switched them out with a couple of the Singer ones. But we definitely, Rachel brought the material first. I brought some on the side, and we were both pretty hands-on with looking at it, shaping it, and figuring out what it was, also to figure out how to move stories that were written, the stories that were originally oral, probably stories that were originally, told. And you can see many of these stories, even if you wanted to right now, just Google, you'll see still on YouTube, there's like just rabbis telling versions of these stories, and storytellers as well, and some animated stuff. But we were using these written verbs. So they went from being, oral, and then they were written down, and then we wanted to tell them as stories again. So what we wanted to change in terms of how they were written in the texts, and what we wanted to put in the script to make them more spoken again. So a lot of that was just like me figuring out what felt good to me, Rachel giving feedback on what sounded good, what worked, and sort of workshopping it from there.
And again, this weekend, 2 shows only, Saturday and Sunday. And you said 3:00 is the start, or 3:30?
3:30.
3:30. Okay. Now at 3:30, but it's gonna, in the event of inclement weather, we hope not. I think it's supposed to be beautiful this weekend. But in the event of inclement weather, would you hold on
the following weekend?
Okay.
We just punt it to the following weekend. But we hope this weekend we're gonna, for folks who want to stay, we'll have hot cider after, and we'll light a menorah after. Is by no means required, but all are welcome to sort of just come and hang.
And if people want to bring their own menorah, I assume
please bring.
Okay.
Yes, that is. You're very much invited to bring your own menorah, and we can just light up.
Right.
But it's hard to light a candle it's hard to light a candle outside, I've noticed, with the wind. But
well,
we're going to do our best.
It can be, depending on whether or not if you're lighting the oil, the menorahs with the oil, it's not that difficult. It's the
so you're welcome to safely bring an oil-based menorah. I don't think we have one.
And so, as to not give you any more suspense, if you're wondering who that particular person was who was complimenting you on your show,
it was my mother,
the wonderful Paul
Werner.
Yes.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yes. I mean, I go back with Paul. I didn't realize how far back I went with Paul, but Paul was the original star of production of Marat Sade, which has the longest title of all in all of the titles that there are. It's like 36 words long. The persecution and assassination of, et cetera,
I wish I could have seen that.
Anyway, I was a senior in high school. I think he's a little bit older than me, just not that much, but a little bit older. I was a senior in high school. This would have been around 1971, and it got rated. It's a long story. Apparently, some of the people reported it, and it made headlines in the Times-Picayune about that. And one of my classmates was actually in the show, and I think they took everybody, brought them all down to the pokey, and they, But it's funny when you think about it, because I don't think they preferred charges or anything like that. But I remember when I went to the theater, it was a place called La Mise en Scene, which is I think it's a restaurant now, Cajun or Creole restaurant that was there.
Where?
Right off of Esplanade Avenue, right, not too far off of Claiborne Avenue, and anyway, long and the short was uh, I was there, and everybody was in character. Like you were in an asylum. If you've seen the play, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
And uh, the women, or should I say, the wenches who were in the asylum, started to, oh, here's a young one here. We can get, and I mean, literally, I was a little bit embarrassed because I was only, like I said, a senior in high school, and they were like all over me and pawing me and stuff, and I'm going, I have to get out of here
It was
now.
like some real immersive theater.
Yes, it was. So, and that may have been a reason that they turned the police on him. I don't know, but anyway, I'd like to think not on my behalf, but anyway, it was a great show, and Paul was in the bathtub, about to be assassinated,
Oh,
etc.
wow,
So,
I wish I
so
could have
he
seen
he
that.
was he was the star of the show. But anyway, so that's how far back I go with Paul, and I didn't realize it at the time that I was going to run into circles with him. But he, of course, is a member of the Gambit now. It used to be the Big Easy Theater Committee,
Mm,
but now it's called the Gambit Big Easy Theater Committee.
mm, mm,
Uh,
mm.
Back in the day, we separated Gambit from the committee, and now they're using it as a branding kind of experience. But
Oh,
it's all
okay.
good. So anyway, Hannah, back to you. Tell me a little bit about some of your other work that you were doing. We'll get back to the play, but I don't want the night to go on too long because you were a film actor, or are a film actor.
Mhm.
Where did you get all the start in doing that? And I'll talk about one of your more recent works that we mentioned earlier. But where did you get started in that? Did you get trained for that somewhere in particular?
No, I started I try to just get trained as often as possible where I can find it, but sometimes the project comes before the training. And the most recent film that I worked on is called Mabel My Beauty. And it's actually just came out on streaming. And I think it's a great watch. It's about a polyamorous triad who starts in New Orleans, and then it takes place in France, and it's a very sort of beautiful exploration of what love looks like for a set of people and how to navigate figuring out what kind of relationship you want to be with
Right.
someone.
Well, I can tell you that those of you who are regular followers of the show, that your co-star is none other than
Oh
Idella
yeah.
Johnson. And again, Idella's been on the show. Matter of fact, she was plugging this movie before it, I think, was released, talking about how she'd done it. It was at Sundance, et cetera, and
Hmm,
I think it was
hmm.
getting ready to come to some film festival, or maybe it was going to have its release in Los Angeles, perhaps. Is that possible?
Yeah, we went to New York. We had New York and
New
Los
York.
Angeles releases this summer. So if you had talked to Idella this summer, it would have been that.
Yes, yes. So and so she was very excited about it, and I'm really excited for her. It had a lot of buzz. I don't know whether or not
Mhm.
it's up for Oscars or anything like that. I don't know how that qualifies or whatever. But this is, I think, a photo of the two of you, right?
That's us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Sundance poster. So yeah, it's a lot about our relationship, the relationship between our characters.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Obviously. Yeah. So, can you give me a little bit of? It takes place in France, does it not?
yeah, so it takes place in France, and it tells the story of these essentially this triad. So Birdie, who's Idella's character, and Fred are two musicians who are in love in New Orleans and also in a relationship with Lane, who's my character, who is principally Birdie's lover. And there's some sort of it's not clear what the agonizing factor is in the film, so I won't
Yeah. That's
suppose
all right.
here, but
Don't
there's some
spill it
sort of
all.
rift between them in New Orleans, and Fred is originally from France, and Fred and Birdie go to France to work on their music career there and to sort of bask in the beauty of Fred's parents' villa. And the film takes place just over one weekend where Lane, who's my character, goes to visit Fred and Birdie and sort of see what possibility is still left in that relationship. So you think sort of, yeah, that sort of
I
relationship
got you.
over a weekend. There's lots of wine and sensuality and sexuality and beautiful, beautiful soundtrack by, if you're in New Orleans, you might be familiar with Mahmoud Chouki, who's a local musician. He did the soundtrack, and it's, especially during these times, it's just a lovely journey to go on.
And who was the director?
Marion Hill. I really should have said that. Marion Hill is the director. They're a really, talented, inspired. They also wrote the film. So,
again, a good bit of it was shot here.
No, actually, it was all shot in France.
Oh, so none of it was shot. Okay, you mentioned New Orleans. I'm thinking that
New Orleans sort of is the backdrop and is the backstory, because it's understood that that's where these characters anchored their relationship and met each other. The film has definitely a New Orleans feel to it, especially because Marion, as a director, works really principally with music almost before they work with anything else. And it was, I think, like 25 New Orleans musicians worked on the soundtrack. Wow. So, you could go to that movie with your eyes closed and still have a good time.
Yeah. So, well, then tell me a little bit about the filming. How long was the filming schedule, and what was involved in actually shooting?
Yeah, so it was a 15-day shoot.
This is pre-COVID, though, right?
This is pre-COVID. We got in right the sweet spot. Although the way that we shot, it would have been really hard during COVID, but it was a very insular set. We shot, you'll see in the film, there's this beautiful sort of, I call it a villa. I think Marion would say that was inaccurate. It's a large house in a vineyard style area of France that Marion's family owns. So a lot of us were able to stay in the house and then stay nearby. So it was there wasn't a lot of traveling. It was pretty much a self-contained set. So in some ways it was sort of COVID safe, but we had a 15-day shoot, which I think is cutting it close for a feature.
That's a short schedule, yeah.
Film, but the crew, which again was, I would say, maybe 2/3. I'm probably getting this wrong, but I think it was about 2/3 New Orleans based and 1/3 French. The crew was just, everyone worked together and really respected each other's time. So it never actually felt very rushed. But I think one of Marion's strengths as a director also was they didn't really have a problem being like, we're going to move on to the next shot now. Like, they didn't need to obsess over things. So I think we were able to sort of say, this is really good, and it's actually really good enough, and we can move on. And that helped us sort of like keep it moving.
I have to ask, though, in terms of that kind of duality, in terms of English and French speaking, was there a language barrier when you were shooting in France for any of the scenes?
Not one that was problematic, and there were a few different languages on set. Marion, luckily, I think, speaks English and French fluently. And one of the producers were Kelsey Skull and Ben Matheny were the producers on set. And Ben also speaks French. So the people and then we had a French producer, Lisa, who also spoke English. So the people who really needed to speak the languages fluently did, and the rest of us spoke enough. And Marion really wrote a lot of the language barrier stuff into the script and sort of wrote mine and Idela's characters with an understanding of how comfortable each one of us was in French. So some of the comedy or just the sort of setup of the film was based in the reality of the challenges of communication, or Fred, who was the French character, the way he pronounced things, that became part of the script and the story.
And I assume a lot of wine, huh?
There was a lot of wine on set. Yeah. I can't really drink during the shooting days because I get a headache, but there was a lot of wine that I missed out on.
Well, you might try the what is it? They said that the I'm trying to remember which one. The red wine might give you a headache, that the white won't.
The white, yeah.
Yeah. So
I did have some of the white. Yeah.
So I mean,
and we drank a lot of fake wine.
I don't ever get headaches. I mean, I can get a hangover easily, but
you don't ever get headaches?
No.
Like,
No,
ever in your life?
no.
That's really nice for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think because it's evening out. Back when I was a youngster, I used to
Mhm.
get classic migraines. The the
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
classic pain
Mhm.
in one
Mhm.
half of your hemisphere, and I had to literally lay down and purge or something like that in order to feel better, and then I felt great. But I missed out every day that I would go out and want to go play. I'd have these terrible
Oh,
migraines. So
wow.
so
I'm
as an
glad that you
adult,
don't have them
as an
anymore.
adult now, I don't have them. So I think, like I said, I paid the price earlier in my life when I was a youngster. I didn't have to repeat all that.
Yeah,
And
I
and
would feel
and
like
again,
that.
I know that we're talking about the play again. Those of you who are just joining us, with the last little bit, it's the Yiddishe Vibe, Yiddishe Vayb, depending on which one you want to pronounce it. The Yiddish wife, the Jewish wife. And if you want to get tickets, this is where you go. It's going to be now. Again, the last time you did it was a little bit difficult to find. You had to draw a
Yeah,
map.
so we will just once you reserve your ticket, we will give you everything you need to get
It's
there, but thank you for the feedback that it was difficult last time.
Yeah,
We'll make
well,
it better this
I
time.
couldn't figure out if it was in the right place because it's like it's right off of like an intersection of some roads back there, but not like well-traveled roads. They're in the back of City
We're
Park.
gonna have a little more help with the box office and greeters this time, so
Okay, I don't doubt it, but I mean, if you can generally just say, was it near where the horse stables are, or where the is that kind of like where it was where the
closer to City Bark.
City Park? Okay,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
anyway, so if you are, I know that they
But
have some.
definitely
Yeah,
give your if you're coming, it starts at 3, give yourself a little extra time to park, to
yeah.
enjoy the day. Don't cut it close.
Right. No, no, no. Yeah, and again, you want everybody to bring chairs, do you not, for this?
Yes, yes. If you can't bring chairs, like let us know in advance. But just to sort of ease of that way, people can also set up. We're going to suggest that people, keep what feels like a safe COVID distance, and we think that having people bring their own sort of camp seating, you can bring a blanket, sort of seeing it as sort of like an outdoor festival vibe.
Okay, so then there's another aspect of your career that we haven't talked about yet, and that is something I found about, I guess around 19, it was about 2005, 2006, was that in Israel, at the hospitals, they were training people to be clowns. And
Mhm.
they were training them to be clowns, not so much as to perform, but to really be ingratiating upon the patients that were there, especially youngsters, and to try to elicit some laughter from them. And they say laughter is the best medicine after all, and that they would actually help the recovery of the patients by bringing joy and bringing laughter. And there is a local. I know I say it's local. It's actually what a national group that called what Prescription Joy. Is that correct? It's so
Yeah, prescription joy.
and
Mhm.
and you're affiliated with them. Did you actually go to clown school like some people that I know, or no?
No, I didn't go to clown school, and yeah, we do hospital clowning. We're not connected to Israel in that way, but we are a local organization. And yeah, it's Becca Chapman and Alex Smith are the founders. You'll see there that's Becca Chapman and Jessica Lozano. And yeah, actually, you can see tomorrow. This is a great, actually, little plug. Tomorrow is the Prescription Joy Ungala, and that's a way to sort of lots of fun online stuff to support the work of Prescription
It's
Joy.
it's
But
also it's also Giving Tuesday tomorrow for Giving NOLA, Giving Tuesday.
right, right.
So
Okay, that's why the Ungala is
right,
tomorrow.
right.
Yeah.
So
So there's I think there's Becca, Jessica, Owen, Alex, myself. There's about 5 to 8 of us who work with Prescription Joy, and we work at Children's Hospital, we work at Ostener Hospital, and we work at a assisted living facility, and we go and find joy with
yeah.
the people who are patients
So,
there.
so
And
when you do it, you actually put on the makeup, etc., and or do you do clowning without makeup? I mean, how's it done?
yeah, we all have our own. You could probably saw in that picture, Becca often wears underwear on her head, and
Uh-huh.
that's Jessica's. we will sometimes have a little bit of makeup now, not much more, maybe things what you see in the picture. Now of course, we're wearing masks.
Right.
So I used to have like blue freckles, but I don't really have them now
That
because
could be on your forehead.
that's a good idea. Yeah. They could be.
Or you could have big earrings, that hang down.
Yeah,
So,
I have a lot of bows. That's sort of
yeah.
where I'm leaning into. But the earring idea, yeah, these are all great. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
When did you get started in this, and how did you get exposed to it?
Yeah, so Becca is a longtime friend and collaborator of mine, and I feel really great. Yeah, Becca Chapman.
She's a great talent.
Yeah, everything she
One of my
touches
favorite actors.
turns to joy. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
really wonderful. And several years ago, they hosted Calvin Kaiku, who also works with Prescription Joy, but is with the Medical Clown Project in San Francisco. And he hosted a workshop, and Becca and Alex invited me to participate. Becca and I have just like been in lots of play spaces together, not specifically clown, but she said, "Hey, come check this out." So I got trained specifically around healthcare clowning and started working with them, and have gotten a lot of my training just by continuing to work with them and by being on the floors.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that the three of them you mentioned were all part of that escape room that they did. If you remember that.
Oh yeah, they're still doing that.
Yeah.
Becca, Alex, and Calvin
Yeah.
have, it's called Escape Room Live, Cyber Escape Live,
Cyber Escape Live.
Live. So if
And,
you,
yeah, and I will just tell you that my team still has the record.
wow,
We broke out in the shortest amount of time.
wow. Well, you beat the clowns did it, and we did not get out in the shortest period of time. But
we did a really good job. Now I'm not going to take all the credit because I had a good team that we assembled, but
yeah, of course, it's a group activity. You can't take all the
well,
credit.
I mean, there were people who they do this. They go to escape rooms in real life, and they
Mhm.
escape in real life. So they already had the experience. I've never been exposed to any of this myself. I
Oh.
mean, so I would they'd say, how do you escape out of the room? And I would I'd see a saw. I see a saw, therefore I can, use the saw to, those sort of crazy, phrases that you would come up with, and now I can saw my way out of the room or something like that. I
Right,
have
yeah,
no idea.
there's a
Yeah,
certain
right.
mindset. It's sort of like if you do the crossword puzzle a lot, you start to
Yeah,
see the same
yeah.
answers,
I,
yeah.
I'm not really as good at that as other people are, and I bow to them in all of their wisdom and all of their experience. So again, we're talking with Hannah Pepper tonight. Again, those of you who want to make a comment, I know that Paul had sent me some information about the La Mise en Scene, but
Oh,
something
so
I think
cool.
it was in my chat or something he said. But in any event, this is the Jewish wife, the Yiddishe Vibe, Yiddishe Vayb. It's going to be at City Park. And again, for those of you who want to find out more and perhaps get some tickets, just go to this site, bit.ly/DIYIDDISHE, the Yiddishe, and it'll basically take you to where you got to go and explain about tickets. Now, what about you didn't mention anything, but what about any pets, etc.? Could they bring pets since it's an outdoor event, or do you frown on that?
I think we're gonna go with no pets just because we don't know how, if there's another person who doesn't feel comfortable.
Service animals are accepted though,
Oh,
I
service
assume. Yeah,
animals, of
right. Yeah,
course. Yeah,
yeah.
service
So,
animals are
but
welcome.
in other words, if
But
they're
if I
bringing
could
the
see your pet if your pet isn't a service pet and I could, see it.
yeah,
I love a pet. I would do a show for just pets. I practice for my dog all the time, but we're trying to just, yeah, probably no pets unless it's a service animal.
okay. And again, for those of you who are interested, we just mentioned the tickets, etc. Um, I don't know whether or not you mentioned any other future possibilities of doing this. You did it once in January, you said, but it had to be pulled back. You did it in May, that I got to see it. Now you're doing it again for Hanukkah. Anybody who wants to come to bring their candles, etc., can do that as well. But I mean, down the road, as you say, you've been adding to it, adding more and more to it. Do you see this being done on on a longer basis than just a weekend in the future? Do you think that maybe we'll be able to have a longer run?
Maybe, yeah. I think it's sort of we just sort of so far we've been squeezing it in where we can, and we want to definitely look for more places to do it, more opportunities to perform, and we're very open to that, and we're seeking it out for sure, for sure. I think trying to find the right connections. Rachel and I are both members of Jewish Voice for Peace, and so there's some national, we are looking for connections to perform in other places. So yeah, but we would love to do it for longer in New Orleans as well. I think we just get excited and then we're like, oh, we have a weekend that we can do it here. So we do it.
Well, that's great. No, I mean, the thing of it is, not everybody, I think in New Orleans in particular, has been exposed to a lot of the, in other areas, Yiddish was much more organized in terms
Mm,
of theater. In New York, of course,
of
it
course.
was
Yeah.
pretty prevalent. But here in New Orleans, we didn't really get a lot of that. The way it was settled, the first groups of course that came here were more or less Germans or maybe Alsatians, and then much of the Ashkenazi Jews who came in towards the end of the 19th century, et cetera, beginning. And I'm speaking, in general terms, of course. Obviously, there were other people who would come from time to time from other places, but the larger wave of immigration took place at that time up until the beginning of the 20th century. And most of those people, those were the kind of people that you would expect when they came to New Orleans might have wanted to bring a lot of that culture with them. But as you know, a lot of that culture was lost because many people thought it was very important to assimilate rather
Right.
than try to bring that culture to America and make it part of the American culture. They just wanted to become part of America and lose a lot of the old world traditions that they had. And of course, as a result, uh, the people who used to speak a lot of Yiddish tended to be the older people, and the younger people were never trained in it. And my parents, I will admit, they used it as a secret language among themselves. Between my parents, would talk between themselves, and then they might say something to my grandparents or whatever, and sometimes I could figure it out, sometimes I couldn't. When they wanted something done, like "V'mach the tia," that means shut the door. I'd have to learn what they meant by it. And so, what? What are you saying? I don't understand that. But Yiddish is a very descriptive language,
Oh,
and it's coming
absolutely.
back now. I think Isaac
Hmm.
Bashevis Singer was somebody who really helped bring it back and give it a certain amount of uh, I guess you might say acceptance in the world of literature. And I actually found later on that he had a specific Yiddish typewriter that he wrote on that was
Mm.
specifically a manual typewriter that was Yiddish that was specific. But you don't see that or learn about it until you do more research on it. And here in New Orleans, we never really had much of a Yiddish culture. I hate to say it. We did have a little bit of a culture for theater, but never really Yiddish theater.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm loving the fact that you're able to bring it to New Orleans, although it might be seen as maybe a little bit late, but the fact is this is a new work after all, and it is broadening some of the horizons for some of the people out there. And again,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for doing that. Um, I don't know in terms of what else is on the horizon for you. What are you looking to do after this weekend? What's on tap for you?
Yeah, and if I may just to respond to what you said, I think that some of what the questions that the piece is asking, especially for so many people whose families came as European Jews, sort of part of this, just sort of like you said, assimilating into this wave of like white settler colonialism and losing what it means now, a couple generations later to be saying, hey, what actually was lost and what matters to me
Hmm.
in terms of belonging. What have I begun to belong to, and what do I want to reconnect to? And that's sort of in some ways the questions that the way we've set up, it's not the way that we've set up the Brecht, which within this piece becomes the questions that Judith, this character who had assimilated into, essentially white German society until she was told that she couldn't be a part of it anymore. Like, she's asking those same questions that I think a lot of people are doing today. And it's very interesting. I think a lot of people in my generation who would have been, 1, 2, 3 generations out from people who were native Yiddish speakers are having this question of, oh, I think is it too late? So it's a real interesting question to be asking. And the only other thing I want to say about the Yiddishe Vayb is that we've been talking sort of about some of the more like meaty issues and stuff. So I do just want to say that it's a very fun and funny play, and it's very kid friendly. And we love it when kids come. Like, the Helm stories are very, I would say, so just want to put that out there. If you're wondering, can I bring my kids? Would my kids like it? I would say this is
Why not?
definitely a kid
No, I'd say
show.
it's interesting too. You mentioned Bertolt Brecht, but Brecht and Kurt Weill, his writing partner early on, both had to leave Germany because
Right.
of this.
Absolutely.
So people who don't know a lot about him might remember Kurt Weill. Some of the songs that he did, like September Song, and some of the other pieces like Lost in the Stars or One Touch of Venus, etc. I mean, all of these beautiful pieces, these fantastic songs. And Brecht, of course, was uh, the person who worked with him in some of those big major roles, even so far as having a song that the Doors made famous, the Alabama song. If you remember, that was from, I think, the
Oh
Rise and
yeah,
Fall of the
that's
City of
yeah,
Mahagoni.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep,
yeah.
yep.
So
Oh, I tell
so
you, we missed that.
a lot of us are exposed to this late. We didn't know what we were exposed to. We didn't know why. But I think part of it is the poetry in this. Yiddish is a very poetic language,
Absolutely.
and again, I think part of the reason that it's always very descriptive. I mean, I I had a wonderful experience today showing somebody that on Facebook. They had the comparison of the German language to all the other beautiful Romantic languages, and how you have this strident German, like ambulance, ambulanza, ambulisa, Keckenwagen,
Yeah.
So it's like this Keckenwagen. So it's this very strident language. But Yiddish is not. Yiddish is about 70% Yiddish, is about 70% German,
But
but
it
it's not.
has romance
Yeah, it
languages in it
does.
as well.
It's got
Yeah, yeah,
Czech and
yeah.
other things that are in it that are really soften it, make it a lot more.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. This you saw the play, so there's a point where one of the characters speaks in Yiddish, and I remember when we first did it, I was like, "Oh, this is okay. I see why," and I see what the
Yeah,
character was trying to say all along.
yeah.
When you're actually doing it in the Yiddish, it's very
And
different.
to me, when I saw the Yiddish version of Fiddler on the Roof a few years ago,
Mm,
it was like hearing the words spoken for the first time in the mother tongue. It was a
Mamaloshin.
transformative experience, and I have to say that anybody, if you know Fiddler on the Roof and the characters are talking between the two of them or between the three of them, you know what they're saying because you've seen Fiddler on the Roof so
Yeah,
many
totally,
times.
totally.
So, and if you need to be reminded, you can look up at the super titles. But it was a wonderful experience for me, and of course, I've seen a number of Yiddish productions at the Museum of Jewish Experience, Living Memorial to the Holocaust up in New York,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
and very soon I'm going to be talking about a piece that they're going to be doing there for Tova Feldsha, who is doing a Mark St. Germain play called Becoming Dr. Ruth, which she did on
Oh,
the at
cool.
in San Diego at the Old Globe, I believe. Oh no, I'm sorry, North Coast Repertory, and they're going to be doing it now in New York, coming up in the next month or so. So that's going to be going on too. But again, Tova knows Yiddish, and there's so many people in New York who are now being
Oh, yeah.
exposed. Is that there's a renaissance of Yiddish going on. So I hope that some of this may rub off, and that more of this will come about. I'm sorry, Rachel wasn't able to make it tonight, but Rachel Lee, the director, and again, give a shout out again for your musician,
Byron Asher. Yeah, check out Byron Asher.
Byron Ash, and he's normally a clarinetist. Is that his main instrument?
Yeah, clarinet, bass clarinet. I don't know if he plays all the clarinet family, and he plays all around town. He's an amazing musician. I think he's playing tomorrow night, maybe at the Saturn Bar.
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
But
Byron Asher. Check him out. He's
Fantastic.
a
All right. I
beautiful
want to thank
musician.
Hannah for being with us tonight. And again, I told you we'd try to stick it out if we could make it for an hour, and we did.
We did
So
it.
congratulate ourselves.
Shocking.
And again, I will hopefully talk with you. In a little bit, I'm going to ask you to just stick around while I say goodbye to everybody. Again, our guest has been Hannah Pepper. Thank you, Hannah. Be right back with you. But again, for those of you who are just joining us, again, my name is Alan Smason, and this is NOLA Theater Talk. We broadcast to the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group and the theatercriticism.com Facebook page and the music lovers, if you will, YouTube channel that I have as well. Again, I'm not sure what we're going to be doing. I know we've got several shows that are coming up Friday, and so we may not have a show for another couple of weeks. So just stick around. I appreciate your, that's a good excuse for me not to be making these shows, and that I'm going to see shows, which for so long, for more than 19 months, we weren't able to see shows. So now that we can see shows, I am going to take a little bit of a hiatus when I need to, and again try to get as many shows on Monday as I can when it's not going to be a conflict. But until that time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with me tonight. Thank you, Hannah. And until that time, I'll see you at the theater.